2 hours down, 2 to go. Home of the Beam team. Just haven't really seen the Beam that often. And Evan Sidery of Forbes is here to join us to help us figure out when we might see the Beam again. Evan, thank you so much for joining us.
Allen, thanks for the invite. I really appreciate it.
So let's start here, Evan. The heater of an article that drops on Saturday. I have since seen Sam Amick and I've seen Anthony Slater. They've been in the building and been around. Are you hearing anything new? So the article drops. The Kings proceed to lose that game that night on Saturday, and then they lose yesterday. Are you hearing anything new since that article dropped and now with the Kings losing these games as far as what the next move might be?
Yeah, I don't think nothing's really changed in the last 48 hours or so. I think just a sense of like Sacramento has to do something at this point, whether it be make a trade, make a staffing change. You would think if this continues for the next week or so that something would be on the horizon because this team is all in. You have De'Aaron Fox, you have Domantas Sabonis, you have DeMar DeRozan, Malik Monk, and Keegan Murray. Arguably one of the 5 best combination as far as the starting lineup goes, as far as 1 through 5 talent. And I think you have to go out and at least make some sort of change. So that's the kind of the feel around the league right now, Allen. But I think in the last 48 hours, I would just say keep an eye on Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith. Those are just the 2 names to look out for as far as potential trade. The Nets want to trade those guys pretty soon because they keep winning games. And the Kings are a really easy match there because, 1, they need to make a move, and 2, they have a really huge need there for a wing.
Talking to Evan Sidery of Forbes. Now, Evan, you brought up Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith. I don't know if it would just be one of them. I don't know if it would be both. I have since said, after seeing the Kings these last couple games, I don't know if they're a Cam Johnson away. So as far as that price tag on Cam Johnson, I think the nightmare scenario for the Kings is because we don't necessarily know what De'Aaron wants. He just says, we want to compete, or I want to compete at a high level. So I think the nightmare scenario is that the Kings overpay for Cam Johnson because he's balling. It's not enough, and De'Aaron still ends up requesting a trade after the season if they mess around in the plan or something like that. So what are you hearing as far as the Cam Johnson price tag?
So I reported last month on X. I haven't read a post about it, but I'm getting around to another intel story here later tonight that I'll be posting. The price for Cam Johnson appears to be 2 first-round picks, but they could go for a first-round pick and a prospect that they like, which is why I mentioned yesterday that Devin Carter might be a name to watch there because he's their lottery pick this year for Sacramento. Brooklyn did like Devin Carter in the pre-draft process. That's an easy match there too. That's something to watch out for because I know Brooklyn wants 2 first-round picks. They have at least 10-plus teams that are in on Cam Johnson. He's one of the hotter names in the market right now. So you have to imagine they'll probably get their price tag, and if they don't want to get 2 first-round picks, it'll probably take one of the Kings' top young guys to make that happen, in my opinion, at this point.
Talking to Evan Sidery of Forbes. Evan, as far as De'Aaron Fox is concerned, we've had a lot of conversations about, is this the beginning of the end? When the report comes out that Rich Paul was up here talking to Wes Wilcox and Monty McNair, how do you think this ends for De'Aaron Fox? He still has the ability to make the most money here in Sacramento, but when you kind of put your foot down and you're represented by Rich Paul and Clutch, and we know how that can go, just give us a guess of how you think this thing ends for De'Aaron Fox.
With the way it's going, Allen, and especially the last 4 games and the energy, I watched that game in full last night. And a lot of people were because they were just intrigued to see how is this Kings team going to respond. And it looked like they honestly quit on the court in the second half. That was just kind of the vibe. And that's not a good look. And I think long term here, especially after that article was posted that Sam and Anthony did a great job on there, I think it's definitely something to watch out for. I would say right now I lean definitely more on the 60-40 side that Fox is gone this summer instead of staying because you have to make a move here. But like you mentioned before, Allen, I personally agree with you on this. I don't think Cam Johnson or Dorian Finney-Smith or even both those guys is going to make the Kings a legitimate title contending team this year. It's going to be, can you sell De'Aaron Fox on, hey, let's keep a Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith around, add him to the core that we have, and you have all this.
I think we lost
That's going to be a
Evan.
massive thing.
I think we get.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you back. We got you back.
Perfect. I was just mentioning his contract situation as far as all NBA. 5 years, $345 million if he were to make that. At this point, how the Kings are playing, that's looking unlikely. So Fox can still make up that money he might lose elsewhere if he doesn't make all NBA. And that's what I would worry about if I'm Sacramento, is if he's getting impatient, which it seems like he is with Rich Paul visiting there. You have to really make a run here if you're Sacramento, or this might be a thing where with all the buzz now and all the NBA kind of circling around Sacramento at this point, the pressure's on, and the pressure's on in a huge way for Sacramento to make something happen here. And if De'Aaron Fox isn't moved, I have to imagine teams are already calling about De'Aaron Fox and inquiring. And that's just the way this league moves. If you hear anything, teams are going to start vulturing around, and that's exactly what's happening here.
Evan, they mentioned the Spurs in that article from Sam Amick and Anthony Slater, The Athletic. Any other teams, maybe not that you're necessarily hearing as far as sourced information, but any other teams? I was trying to cook up some names in my head. If the Sixers, I think the problem with the Sixers and Tyrese Maxey is I'm very high on Tyrese Maxey, and they might think we don't need to move Tyrese Maxey for De'Aaron Fox. But any other teams that feel like they're a De'Aaron Fox away that we should keep an eye on?
Yeah, one team I was able to ask around about, and really the feel around the league is on this, is that Houston is a team to watch out here, another team, because he is from Houston. They have a lot of assets and flexibility thanks to the Phoenix Suns and Brooklyn Nets trades. They have a lot of good young pieces too. That's one I would certainly watch out for with San Antonio. And these are other ones I've just had non-intel on. These are just pure speculation. I would say Miami's one to watch out for, because if they want to tweak around the edges, if Jimmy Butler does leave, they have a lot of cap space now after Jimmy Butler leaves, and De'Aaron Fox would, I think, make a lot of sense there. Maybe you build a package around Tyler Hero and some draft picks that might intrigue Sacramento as far as a kind of a reset. I think that's a team to watch out for. Obviously, the Bam Adebayo, De'Aaron Fox connection from Kentucky. Those guys are still very good friends to this day, so that might loom there. And then obviously you have to keep an eye on the two always aggressive teams in star talks. That's the Lakers, and at this point, the Phoenix Suns, because somehow, some way, even though no team really wants that Bradley Beal contract, the Suns are going to keep asking any team that wants it to take it on. And you might maybe see if Bradley Beal's still in this roster, maybe the Suns circle around and say, hey, take our draft pick in 2031 and Bradley Beal for a guy that's probably going to be leaving anyways in De'Aaron Fox.
Talking to Evan Sidery, who covers the NBA for Forbes. Evan, just want to take a little bit of time here to talk about the luxury tax. So we have a lot of listeners that will say, and there have been some discussions on other podcasts just about Vivek Ranadive's thought process around the luxury tax and whether or not Monty McNair is being a bit handcuffed. We don't have to go into specifics, but what is your understanding of how most owners look at the luxury tax? Because the way I see it is, well, you're not going to go into the luxury tax to try to get to the second round. You're going into the luxury tax if you think the team can win the whole thing. Not to say that they will, but it's a little bit of chicken or the egg. If the team has been better, then maybe he'd be willing to do it, or some guys just aren't willing to do it at all. Well, what's your take on the luxury tax and how much freedom GMs are given from their owners?
Yeah, that's exactly right. If you're a team paying the luxury tax, especially a second apron team, like a team like Phoenix, for example, Matt Ishbia is all in on winning a championship every single year. That's what a team paying the luxury tax is. And you see that across the board for most contending teams. Is if you're going for a championship, at least internally you feel that way, you're going to be very comfortable saying, hey, pay that luxury tax. That's going to come back to us tenfold if we're a successful team in revenue. It all will come back in the meantime anyways. That's one thing to watch out for, I would say, with Sacramento. Are they a team that is willing to pay that luxury tax? And like you mentioned, I don't think Vivek has ever paid the luxury tax. And that's going to be a thing where you have to wonder if Sacramento will finally be like, hey, we need to give this core an actual chance to win and compete for a championship. And a move like a Cam Johnson, for example, that would push them over the luxury tax. That would be a move saying, hey, Cam Johnson is a contending title piece. He's worth that to take us over the top. That's kind of the feeling as far as going for the luxury tax. And a lot of teams avoid that because again, they're not a good team, or they just want the flexibility. That's the other part of the coin. I would say with Sacramento, you really don't have the flexibility anymore, especially with De'Aaron Fox kind of putting on the clock, so to say. I think it's time to push those chips in, like I mentioned in my story, and kind of see if you can go get a Cam Johnson or Dorian Finney-Smith. And if it doesn't work out in the end, if De'Aaron Fox asks out, you reassess everything this summer, and you maybe get your assets back tenfold, and maybe you pull it down in a different way.
Evan Sidery covers the NBA for Forbes. Evan, before we get you out of here so you can enjoy your holidays, even though I know you're going to be working just like me, we're giving away tickets, 76ers and Kings. That's on New Year's Day. My question to you is, for those lucky callers that win tickets, do you think they will be seeing the same roster on Wednesday, January 1st of 2025?
I unfortunately do. I think now.
Wow. Okay.
I think that they are definitely calling around, but I think the Nets, the Nets are the team to watch out for here, because they're the next domino to drop again, even though they already had the Dennis Schroeder move. Everyone's waiting on Cam Johnson. Everyone's waiting on Dorian Finney-Smith. One of those wings has to move, and the Nets have the market that they want. So they're kind of just playing tic-tac-toe here with teams and trying to just have a bidding war here. And I think this bidding war might drag out past the holiday. And I wouldn't imagine any far past that, though. That's a good deadline. I would say maybe mid-January would be the point. But I think for a team like Sacramento, you have to push that plug pretty soon. I would say within the next week or two. If things continue down this way, you have to also wonder, too, about Mike Brown. Even though he just signed an extension, is he a guy that's on the hot seat with this roster where, even though Vivek just paid him his contract, if this continues down that road, that's definitely going to be talked about more.
Evan Sidery covers the NBA for Forbes. Be sure to follow Evan on social media. Check out all of his work for Forbes. Does great stuff. Evan, can't wait to have you back on. Enjoy your holidays. Merry Christmas, all that jazz. We'll talk to you again soon.
Absolutely. Anytime. Merry Christmas, Allen. Thanks.
When we return, we will give away those tickets. Evan Sidery says he thinks that the roster will be the same. Well, you can find out and be there in person on the other side. We give away our third pair of Kings tickets. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports.